Okay, so thank you guys so much for sharing, first of all. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about how this has come into practice, because I'm sure you all might imagine that leading an art classroom online is probably a little different than some of the things you do. Um, and there are some tactics that I've come up with, which is just simply how to actually manage a flipped classroom in a way that empowers the student. And I found that I had essentially no problems, and actually no problems even when I took these practices into summer school and did them with incoming ninth graders and incoming 10th graders, children that I do not know. I know that there's a little bit of a worry with this stuff that come the new school year, we aren't going to know the boys that we're teaching. I actually did all of this stuff within the first week with both of my summer reading classes, and both of those groups are children I have never encountered before. And they were both very successful. So there's some basics to this ahead of time, which is one of them is that you really just need to be clear and set some guidelines, which is you tell them your expectations. But I'm going to share a little bit of presentation and kind of talk around some slides. They're really just prompts to keep me on track. But let me share my screen here. All right. Okay, can you all see that? All righty. Let me go to the present button, which I can never find because I never use this. Top right. Oh, there it is. It was under my Zoom thing. Okay, so go back. There. No, what are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? I don't love you. There we go. Okay, so this is presented by me and Christian, but this is me talking mostly about what I have discovered, partially because I don't know, there's some things I've come across that definitely made my life a little more interesting with how you actually manage a digital classroom. Kind of the golden rule here is my first slide. So students do best when you know that something is expected of them. This goes a lot of ways. This means that you expect them to work, you expect them to be articulate, you expect them to be respectful, you expect them to talk, you expect them to participate. So a lot of that has to be set up at the beginning. So something that I talked about immediately with my 2 new classes over summer was that, because this was already drilled into my kids who had been in a classroom with me, but when I'm addressing kids that I don't know, is that you're getting a participation grade. I want you to raise your hand. I want you to talk. I don't like just talking on Zoom by myself. I actually want you to interact with me. I want to be able to have a conversation and a dialogue, because that's what makes being a teacher valuable. Like, to me personally, that is the thing I value. I value dialogue. And so I think a lot of this comes with like a weird double-edged thing of honesty, which is that you have to be really honest with them about what you get out of teaching. So that was kind of the beginning of especially when we went online initially, I would talk to my classes a lot about what I missed, and what I missed about being in class with them, and how I viewed them as people, and how I respected them and trusted them and allowed them to do all these kinds of things. So as soon as you set an expectation for them, as long as you set your bar real high, and you tell them like, yeah, some days I know might not hit the bar, but you know where the bar is, and that generally I expect the bar of you, but you're honest about the days where you might not hit it perfectly. They understand where you need them to be in order to interact with you. And so I think really it becomes this kind of honesty is the best policy sort of thing. I also set up breakout rooms in my Discord chat, where if I ever had a like true disciplinary issue, I had the ability to pull kids on their own and chat with them, so that they actually could get context for why I was upset. I actually did not have to use them. And I haven't had a single issue yet this summer. So these are my top 3 tips for a flipped digital classroom. So this whole exercise of like you sharing a video, I actually had my 9th graders and my 10th graders do, within the first 2 days of class, do a presentation to the entire class. And I, without knowing those students, told them that I trusted them. And I told them that I trusted them to have control of my Zoom for the period. So every 2 minutes, so every person did a 2-minute presentation, I was giving another person co-host rights. And I told them that I am believing in you, that you will not do anything you shouldn't do with this. Um, and so I told them that they basically got the trust of me believing that they were going to do exactly what I asked of them. They were going to share their screen. They were going to talk about Frederick Douglass in the case of the 10th graders, and my 9th graders were going to talk about Jeanette Walls. So we were going to talk about the two authors behind these books, and you were going to give me their history, and we were all going to listen respectfully and give feedback and answer questions. And so we did that for the entirety of 2 periods with 2 groups of kids. And every day I reminded them that what this hinged on was that I trusted all of them to give me a good presentation. And so this quote actually is very meaningful to me, which is to be trusted is a greater compliment than being loved. Bringing it back into the world of Jesuit education, I mean, really, there's a huge part of this, which is like, you know, we do love our students. And sometimes the way you have to bring that about to them is to show them that, like, we, on some level, we do trust them to be adult, and we do trust them to be mature, and we do trust them to have intelligent dialogue, and we believe in their ability to do so. So trust is kind of really up there for me, and especially even in my own terms of being honest. I always kind of say honesty is the best policy for both me and for them. So it becomes a very transparent relationship. Where they kind of know where I'm coming from at any given moment. And they also know that if I'm upset, I'm not feigning upset. They're very aware that if I really am upset about something, it's not me being theatrical, it's not me being mean, it's me saying, no, you upset me, and that is not your fault, but this is me being transparent with my emotions back to you. Largely because I think with boys too, there is this sense of needing to teach them that being transparent with your emotions is both okay and admirable. So it kind of does, it works in a lot of ways. And the flipped classroom, I mean, really the way I'd have to put it is it gives them agency. It gives them agency over their emotions. It gives them agency over the space. It gives them agency as people to go out into the world. And so it's like a miniaturized version of how they're going to be as adults. So another one is modeling behavior. So another great quote, the shortest answer is doing. I think that especially as a visual arts teacher, this is something that to me almost feels like I don't need to include it, but I definitely know I do it all the time. If you yourself present the way you wish your students to present, so whether or not that is modeling art skills or modeling writing skills or modeling theological beliefs or anything that essentially surrounds what you as a teacher do, they're aware that you are modeling to them what you wish them to be. And so it's a very, it falls back into the trust thing, but it's also showing them, actually giving them a guideline, a physical thing that they can reference that says, this is what is expected of me and this is what is wanted. And so if I give a presentation on something, like, yeah, I'm not going to freak out about something that I might think is maybe a little bit like off topic. I'm going to talk to it and I'm going to actually engage it, and then I'll bring the conversation back. Or, if I give a presentation, it's going to be a few minutes long and I might chat and I might talk, but I don't actually ever put a lot of stuff on my screen. And so I give them the ability to know, hey, if your strengths are that you're a super social person who can talk in front of a lot of people, go for it. Like, embrace that. If you're not, go ahead and put together like some cool different video that somehow engages us in a different way. And I think it also allows for some self-reflection between them, which is if they see what you do, then they see what a peer does, and then they see what they did. They can actually look at those 3 things and be like, wow, Johnny's presentation was amazing. Miss Grau's presentation was good, but Johnny's was amazing. What did Johnny do that made that so good? And then they can actually self-reflect and take those notes to themselves, which is like, and they can also take that from open criticism and open praise from a teacher. I really think that the ability to be honest with them about what they are making, especially in the visual arts, but in anything, being honest and critical but kind is a huge way that they can then learn how to take those skills out into the world. And as soon as you give them the hat in a digital classroom where I'm saying, here, you have all the power, go ahead, present, I want to hear what you have to say, I care about your opinion, I care about what facts you looked up. All you are telling them in that moment is that not only do you trust them, but you trust them to emulate what you believe good teaching is. And I think that's really the key, is so much of it comes down to just your trust of the student themselves. And this is a huge one, open dialogue. So It's a Socrates quote. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. Um, I I am a huge believer in being able to have an open conversation about absolutely anything. I think as soon as you shut down dialogue, especially constructive dialogue, you're telling them that they're wrong in a way that can actually have an emotional impact. But if you're willing to talk intelligently and calmly about subject matters and be able to engage all students in that. For instance, I mean, I don't know how many of you are teaching summer reading currently, but I know that like the Glass Castle, for instance, has a very difficult section in it about rape. And being able to talk about that in a way that is neither histrionic nor like that's not any one way, essentially not real black or real white, like very like allowing that to be a gray area discussion, and allow them to work through the shock of it, allow them to process it emotionally, and allow them to do that collectively, and then allow them to do presentations on things that allows them to talk back to those moments, which gives them a sense of, again, agency. You're giving them power by telling them that their opinion is worthwhile and they are worthwhile, but also telling them that everyone else's opinions are also worthwhile and deserve being listened to. So the way you start dialogue is basically learning to be honest with yourself, honest with them, and then allowing them to do the same. Because sure, a disagreement might happen in there, but like disagreements in life happen. The world could take a great note from this, right? Like learning to actually have like gray area discussions. That's what we value. That's what we want. We want them to intellectually engage. And also just the understanding that like I might necessarily agree with what any of them have to say, but I'm willing to listen and respond calmly and intelligently. It makes them feel like the thing I'm noticing is that it really makes them feel validated, not in an inflated way, but validated in that someone was willing to hear them and then correct them, as opposed to just shooting them out of the sky outright. So to me, it's really a matter of being able to have an open and kind and respectful dialogue. I mean, those of you who've been in my classroom know that I have a giant sign on one of my walls. It's my critique wall. That's the physical definition of critique. Because critique is something that is rarely mean. It's constructive, and sometimes it needs to happen. So being able to guide them to learn to critique one another and critique themselves in a way that leads to both self-reflection and growth. Um, so just in terms of like a final takeaway for all of that, I know that's a lot, and I know it's not everyone's classroom is set up to do that, but it's really easy to allow them to like actually engage with the flipped classroom, even if it's just a little tiny, a little silly presentation, which is that you give them power, you let them actually like realize that they trust you and kind of run with that and enjoy the moment of being able to be the teacher and be in front of people and actually embrace and understand what that means, because I don't think they realize how much work it actually is on our end as well. So it actually allows them to empathize with us as a teacher too. So the best way for students to learn online is to do it for themselves, which isn't like, is really, they have to engage in a different way. We're not there to hold their hands. I'm not there to tell them it's okay. I'm not there to edit their papers by hand anymore. But I can give them the tools to be able to go out into the world and be intelligent, well-spoken, good, well-written, well-read people. And it's kind of like there's a matter of trust, which is you have to trust that they want that too. So I digress, but thank you guys for listening to me. It's been a real experience, actually doing this fully online, especially as an art teacher. I've done a lot of very strange projects. And I mean, a lot of them have been giving the students literal 100% control of my classroom. Like we actually, at the end of the year, did a full digital critique across five classes. And we had huge groups of children talking to each other and actually being able to critique each other's work. And it was respectful and absolutely on point the entire time. I was exceptionally proud of my boys. So I think a lot of it is really, you get them to trust you, and you tell them that that you trust them, and you kind of end up with a relationship that moves on from there on out. So thank you.